Hello and welcome back to One for Paul, the show where I, the original non-pop culturist, get inducted into the world of pop culture by friends, comedians, and nemeses. Joining me today is my high school drama teacher.
Who, some people think that teachers are nemeses, but, I'm like, I know who I am, and
is there a word for a good nemesis?
Oh, man, that would be digging into, the English language. English
Rival?
teacher / historian part of me.
Rival, maybe?
There needs to be a word, exactly. There needs to be a word for someone who, pushes in you and challenges you and, calls you on your stuff. I mean, I'm trying to think, there's those two famous tennis players that, antagonize each other, but, yeah, we could go with adversary.
That still sounds quite adversarial. Too much of a negative tone.
Yeah, that still sounds too negative.
We'll figure it out. But first, This week, you had me watch a movie. I sent you the list, and you immediately sent me back the word "what" in all caps.
Yeah, because no one I know has heard of it. I'm really surprised it's considered this pop culture thing, because I'm, walking around preaching the gospel of this film. And, the fact that it was on your list, I want to know who threw that on your path.
Oh, that was a couple of people did. The first one was former co-host of the show, Dan Chapman. Who's been a collaborator of mine for a while, and also Carl Roland, formerly of Pop Culture Pod when I was producing that. So both very big film buffs, and they were like, if we're covering films, here's one that you should see. And a couple other people have said the same thing you did, which is, how is that on the list?
Yeah, and for me, it's, again, I don't know anybody who's ever heard of it, and I've lived in 5 different states, and I used to live in London, which is obviously how I met you before I moved back to Texas. And I mean, the only reason that I know about it is my mom kind of, made film history kind of a thing she did in the house. And she kind of fell into this small little French pocket of films in the 60s. So I watched a few of them, and I don't know, once you see Umbrellas of Cherbourg, you never forget it. But I mean, it's the thing when there's an off period in class, if kids are testing, and I don't see them I had them 2 hours at the end of the day for standardized testing. It's one of those things I put on because I'm well, you're a captive audience and you're never going to see this. And I want you to see this. And by the end of it, I have teenage boys standing up in their chairs, screaming at the screen, why? What? And so, if I can get teenage boys in Houston, Texas excited about a French musical, I mean, it's just showing you the universality of it all, as far as I'm concerned.
That's right. Welcome to Umbrella Corporation of Cherbourg, where it's been 10 days and counting since the last zombie outbreak.
That's a much darker version, but it does connect to my whole spiel that Tim Burton is got to be a secret Umbrellas of Cherbourg fan. The color alone. And I can see him blending it with zombies. That'd be a masterpiece. I would watch that.
I got color notes.
Yeah.
Just don't worry about the color notes. God, the colors.
Yeah. I mean, it's they figured out Technicolor and they just turned it up to 11.
I feel like that happens a lot in technology, but we got to start from the beginning unless there's other stuff you want to say at the front.
Nope. Everything else I know can just run with when we come across it. I've certainly got some very fun ideas about this film.
So fade in to a highly choreographed overhead crane shot of Cherbourg on a rainy day and a lovely song by the film's composer, Michel Legrand.
Mm-hmm. And he just died, I think, in the last year. He passed. Yeah. And he won awards for his work, but
I'm not surprised. Yeah. Not surprised. Mm-hmm. Part 1, Le Départ. The going off, I guess, the starting. Look, a garage where a handsome mechanic is finishing work. That second car shows up. On first viewing, it was just a rich dude in a fancy car. On second viewing, oh man, that guy. He's here. You know, the guy.
I'm lost. Which part? Did I miss?
Oh, no.
I missed a layer to this film?
The opening scene when we're introduced to Guy.
Right.
A guy in a car comes in. And then he says, okay. Oh yeah, I'll fix your car. And then another car comes in and the boss is like, hey, can you stay an hour? And he's like, no, I can't stay an hour. I got a thing. And he leaves to get his thing. The customer is someone we will see later.
Have I completely missed that layer to this film that I love so much?
You might have missed that layer. Watch the first scene again. I'm telling you, it's him. If it's not him, it is a spitting image.
Well, and what's crazy to me is, I mean, I have a little crush on the lead, so maybe I've just not looked. Anyway, maybe the color is so distracting and the lead is so complex and charming.
In the locker room, the guys are washing up before heading home. They discuss their plans for the evening. Handsome Man here is going to the opera, and I can hear the voice of the director delivering a sales pitch for his movie to the investors. See, it's an opera, but also a movie, but also an opera, and this guy likes dancing. We'll have some of that, and also opera, right?
See, but here is where, so when you were on my theater tech crew, did we do the musical Grease? I feel like we did when you were my tech crew.
We did, but I was not the technical director for that one.
Yes, I do remember that. But in my head, I'm just kind of thinking, this is clearly, proving that there is powerful dance and song set in an auto shop that, it just sells it as a formula as far as I'm concerned. I mean, this could be the dream sequence of Grease Lightning with like the intense color and choreography and things like that. There's obviously not like super dancing there, but you look at this like uber masculine place and it's like, but no, there's room for some fabulous music here as well. I don't know.
I guess to me, opera is by definition a masculine thing because I was introduced to it by my grandfather, and my father loves I go to the opera with my dad, and it's like a thing that men do together and also women do together. It's not a gendered thing, I guess. Is what. But I mean.
here's what I would counter with that we have one cliche statement that we use relating to the opera, and we say it's not over till the fat lady sings. And Bugs Bunny has that helmet with the little braids. So in my head, I think I jumped to women first. Not that I don't think couples went together and like everybody goes, or that it is gendered. I just think you're not going to have a lot of guys in like auto shops dreaming of doing like musicals,
Maybe not.
Because I think people...
But I think fronts in the, 1950s, that might have been different because, I don't know, maybe that's like where you go to listen to cool music.
And car design used to be a lot more about chic lines and like aesthetics than more so than it's today. So
Cybertruck.
The French are pretty good at, making things aesthetically pleasing. So if you're going to have aesthetes running through cars and music, I mean, yeah, I can see it happening. But, with the bright, sharp colors, I always think of, the first time I saw music connected to an auto shop and it's just swinging the other direction. But, it just sells the idea to me.
Cut to him arriving at an umbrella shop to see his girlfriend, Genevieve, who works there. She runs outside and they make out in the rain, while her mother sells an umbrella to a dude who walks into an umbrella shop and says, "I'd like an umbrella."
I've always wondered how lucrative an umbrella shop would be. Which clearly becomes a problem throughout the show, right? Without too many spoilers.
It's not a good shop.
Yeah.
It's a very good shop, but all they sell is umbrellas.
Yeah, I think of like all the little, whenever it rains, in London, all the umbrella little stalls come out of like the main shops to sell the quick little ones that, but it's never the main line. Like never have I seen an umbrella shop in real life. Although I do want to say when you go to Euro Disney and they have a little side park that goes along with every Disney park has got their main park and then they're going to have like a little one-off custom side park. Have you been to the one in Paris? Are you too cool for that?
Once when I was little, yeah.
Okay, well, their partner park, and I forgot what it's called. What Disney did was they blended, they have to ask the local culture what they have to offer. And France is obviously very proud of their cinematic heritage, the inventors of a lot of technology for film. This is stuff that, has been covered over and over again. So, a lot of what that park does is it goes back to like things that connect to French cinema. And one of the little fake storefronts that they have there is actually the umbrellas of Cherbourg, like window front.
I didn't realize. You're kidding.
It's one of those, and they have a telephone pole out front, and from it they have an umbrella that is kind of like the top part of the umbrella is kind of like against the pole, and it's obviously where they siphon water. And then when you stand under it, like a fountain comes on, and you can pose your picture underneath an umbrella that's like braced there, and you can grab the handle while it rains, and the umbrellas of Cherbourg thing is behind it. Like the French are very, very proud of this film.
That's very good.
So,
we'll get to what I actually think about it as we do the scene by scene. But the French definitely seem proud of this thing. Cut to Guy. This is the handsome man's name. He's going back home, where he seems to live with his Aunt Elise, who's old and ill. Also lonely and both happy and sad that Guy is going out with a girl.
But is this the scene where she talks about sometimes happiness is being sad or something like that.
That's the one. Yep. That's the most...
I'm like, that is the most French line in the whole film.
I was going to say exactly that same thing. Glad we're on the same page. And I'm like, yes, life. I remember now. God, I find that so refreshing from French cinema, honestly, because I go to France and people are like, yeah, it sucks, but what are you going to do? I'm going to do stuff. And I go to America and I find people being completely distraught by things like they didn't have the canapes I like. I'm like,
I mean, there's a certain gravitas that comes from, acknowledging the suffering and then finding the will to keep going anyway. The French have had one heck of a ride throughout history, so they got some chops to say those things.
I got some notes about what's happening historically during the period of this film even, so folks got reason to complain.
Yeah.
Here's her nurse, Madeleine, who arrives so that she can smolder at Guy for a bit as he prepares to go out with Geneviève. You see her smoldering?
Oh, full on. I mean, and of course, knowing what you know, it's interesting, but yeah. But, it's also one of those, he's indifferent, which, and I think my friend taught me the term of hanging a lantern in cinema where, something comes across and you realize this is going to be important later, but maybe you miss it the first time the way through.
Hanging a lantern. But, I like that. I've never heard that before. I like it.
It's like some term for it. So when she comes in, I mean, she seems more than a throwaway character even from the beginning, So you kind of pay attention to her, and yeah.
I wonder how that's done. Is it presence? It might be just leitmotif, like she has her own leitmotif.
I don't know. But she's charming, and you like her from the beginning, and she's established as like a kind character, and yeah. There's no complaints about her.
Cut to the opera, where who else has a leitmotif is Carmen, who they're seeing at the opera, and Genevieve's dress wasn't ready in time, so it's still full of pins, which seems to only be an issue during this first scene while they're watching the opera, and not at the dance club they go to afterwards.
I also love the fact that if she's wearing a dress that's kind of pinned together, how exactly? There's only one time that it actually hurts somebody? Like, in my head, and Lord knows, I am the queen of, I can dance in platform shoes and tall heels for hours and hours and hours. And, I get the whole, sometimes you got to suffer to pull off the outfit you want to do. But never would I be like, I'm just going to pin this together because this is the only dress that I want to wear. Other dresses won't work because they're finished. But no, I'm going to commit to the one that potentially, total random story. There was I'm not going to throw her name because I don't know if it matters in the podcast, but there was a Danish teacher when I taught you, and I was friends with her and I rode the bus with her, and she talked about how when she went to parties and she didn't want people to mess with her, she was so interesting. She would wear this like baseball cap, but this is very strange. She stuck pins through it like a little porcupine. So that way, because people would always try to like snatch her hat, which is a weird thing. I don't know why they would do that at a party, but she did it to keep people away. And I'm like, why is that your solution? Why are you going to go to a party if you're that worried about stuff? Like,
maybe don't wear the hat.
I know. I'm just kind of like this. Just the picture of what her life was like and that concept. I don't know. So to me, the idea of like, I can't think of any times anybody wears pins and garments to leave. Oh, except for that one crazy story.
Except for that one person who is doing it to deliberately turn a garment into a weapon.
Yeah, exactly. To weaponize her hat, So there you go. But yeah, no, it's a beautiful dress, and yeah, but all of a sudden it seems to hang on perfectly when she's dancing, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Also, that is the most red I have ever seen at once.
Speaking of which, I had mentioned to you before, this film inspired La Land.
I have never seen La Land. I understand it won an Oscar.
Well, that was the thing. It was the one that was on the stage and was awarded Best Oscar, and then they realized they read the wrong envelope.
Oh, that's what happened,
and they called up Moonlight, and Ryan Gosling has the most adorable giggle as he's stuck on stage, realizing what has just happened. So it did win lots of awards, and the guys who wrote the music for La La Land are the ones who wrote it for The Greatest Showman, so they're kind of like the current musical darlings right now of movies. But La La Land, there's a few references. Whenever you see it, I'm not going to go into the whole thing right here, but whenever you see, there's a moment when the two characters meet, like in a coffee shop where she works, and as she's walking out, right? Well, no. There's two. I'm going to get there.
Okay.
They're walking out, and she works like on a Hollywood like studio set, And she's a coffee shop there. And when she walks out, she points across the street to a window from Casablanca, but right below it is the umbrella shop from Umbrellas of Cherbourg. So like the director, I think his name was Dave Giselle. I think I've got his name wrong. That's probably it. He put that scene, that umbrella shop is in the movie, but he points out the thing above it. So you can see that it's there. But then also they do end up going to a club later in like a dream sequence, and it's got all red walls. And that's when I was like, by then I'd already figured out that it was a comparison to the film. But yeah. And the character also wears browns and blues, which if you'll notice, the main Guy wears browns and blues. So Ryan Gosling, his color choices in the film match it. So La La Land does color stuff, and those red walls show back up in the film too. So anyway, yeah, super recognizable.
Yeah, I now feel like I need to add La La Land to the list.
You
I think Casablanca is
to.
already on the list.
Oh, La La Land is wonderful.
Yeah, so I've been told. I mean, I guess you don't win a lot of Oscars for a bad film.
Yeah, and then almost win Best Oscar, but, become a different part of history for a different reason.
I feel like it's more memorable for that, because if you were to ask me who won the Best Movie Oscar the last, say, any time in the last 10 years, I would be saying, what?
Yeah, but I mean, it lost to Moonlight, and if you haven't seen that film, I wasn't even mad because I love Moonlight so very, very much.
On the list.
So,
I think it's on the list. If it's not, I'll add it.
You need to, for
They
sure.
danced
Anyway.
for about 10 seconds, just long enough for Geneviève to deliver some exposition about her mother's disapproval. Cut to the docks, where they discuss the future! Turns out there's going to be, like, electric cars and stuff.
And Doc Brown is going to show up with a wonderful dance number. He's a hell of
is.
a dancer, dude. Yeah. Not everyone knows that.
First, they're going to have a daughter named Françoise. That's the first thing they reckon is going to happen. Then they'll sell the umbrella shop, and then they will own a petrol station. And most importantly, they will stay in love.
Yeah, it's good that you plan to stay in love.
Surely no end of Act 1 plot devices will conspire against them, causing these events to occur exactly as they've described, but in unexpectedly disappointing ways.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like when stories start out with a young couple in love, they're ever going to face any problems. Who would do that?
What kind of monster, I ask you, would write such a story? Geneviève knows exactly what her mother will say, and it turns out she's right word for word.
Almost like it was scripted.
Almost like someone wrote that down. Also, wait just a second. She's 17, and he's 20. That is barely inside of the standard creepiness quotient. I don't know if I should give it a pass.
Well, that's obviously part of her mom's concern. The idea of, you're too young to know what love is. You can't understand it, and you shouldn't be, dedicating your time to it. But who knows what the social norms are in small towns? I mean, the scale is obviously very different for people, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Her mother is of the opinion that Geneviève is not actually in love because only she understands love.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what moms do. They're the ones that understand love and they can control it for you. So
naturally,
yeah.
And also, I guess she Sorry, go ahead.
I think this is Catherine Deneuve's first film too.
Is it her first?
I think it is her first.
I guess Belle de Jour.
I mean, she was very young. She was a teenager when this film came out.
I guess Belle de Jour was a few years later, wasn't it? That was like 67?
That one is 67, and Umbrellas of Cherbourg is 64. I don't see anything else. I'm scrolling on her IMDb right now. I don't see anything else that comes before that for her.
I have a DVD collection that I purchased for this episode because I could not find a streaming service that would stream it for me. And welcome to UK, I guess. It says Donkey Skin, Ma Saison Préférée, and Manon 70. Or a Manon 70.
Huh.
I don't know.
Okay, you know what? No, looking at the math, she is 21 in this.
Yeah.
So I was mistaken.
She plays, I think she gets away with looking 17, kind of.
Oh, they do. They do it with the clothes and the thing, and she is...
A lot of
she's just
costume,
stunning.
You're right.
She is stunning. I think she's the most beautiful person I've ever seen on the screen. I mean, she's a little crazy nationalist party now. She's kind of complicated and a little bit off the... I mean, I'm an American, and I don't think I would have liked who she voted for nowadays, but, stunning woman. Absolutely stunning.
Also...
I mean, she's in the film The Hunger, which is like a 1983 vampire film with David Bowie, and they're like romantic partners. And I mean, even then in 83, she's just striking.
6 Degrees of Bowie.
Telling you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bowie.
Bowie. It always goes back to Bowie. So there you go.
Also, Buddy hasn't done his military service yet, being 20, I guess. I'm not sure how conscription works in 1950s France. I tried to look it up, and it's quite difficult to find out, weirdly. I'm sure that won't come up later, though, so it's probably fine. It's not like it's going to be the major turning point of the film or anything.
No, it's not like it's going to offer a big problem they have to, address. Sure.
The mail arrives, and it turns out they've got to come up with a bunch of money or lose the shop.
Mm-hmm.
I think this scene of them making lunch while sort of idly arguing back and forth, both about what to do about the shop's tax bill and whether Geneviève should get married, is just one of my favorite scenes of the film. It is so exactly a real conversation that they're singing to. All of this is singing, by the way. It's all recitative.
I was going to say, you hadn't mentioned the fact that literally every word is sung in this thing. Every single word.
It is all
recitative. It's not like dialogue and dance numbers. It is just all kind of free jazz.
I don't know.
Pulling into songs every once in a while. Well, I just mean in the sense that you have actual dance, songs, right? But then you've got the little bridges that go between the full on I Will Wait for You duets and things like that are the radio bits, which I think is why my mom even saw this film, because the song I Will Wait for You was on the radio in America.
Oh, really?
And it led everyone to this film in the 60s.
Huh.
And so, yeah, and I do catch it every once in a while in commercials. But then you'll have kind of the little kind of snapping jazzy lounge kind of free form, not quite song structure bits that get between the more traditional song structure parts.
I'd call this straight up classical recitative, but done with jazz-like chord extensions. So it does frequently feel more sort of folky jazzy, but the structure of the recitative is there's a lot of voice leading, and this is getting very inside baseball. But yes, I agree with you. It's a tone that I don't hear a lot in any cinema. In fact, I think it's the first time I've heard a recitative in cinema when it wasn't something that was a musical on Broadway that was then brought over to cinema.
And I think you're right in the idea that I never really thought about it being more opera-like than traditional musical, because traditional musicals will have dialogue and then songs.
Yeah.
But this one does seem
opera.
to you're right.
This is an opera.
I never really thought about it before. I just took it for granted, but you're right. Yeah.
But what's weird is it has fewer songs, and most of it is recitative. That's unusual, because mostly you sort of have recitative to sort of put your actors in the right place, and while they're doing costume changes and stuff, it's like, well, what do we do in the meantime? I don't know, sing something. It's sort of that. I'm minimizing it, but it's not the main attraction, whereas in this film it is the main attraction. It is the driver.
Yeah, it's the plot mover. I mean, the emotional stuff comes with the songs, but the plot moving is all done in that stage, for sure.
Even the emotional stuff, I'd argue. Even the emotional stuff. But we can, if we really want to get into the weeds of the music theory, we can maybe do that. But
well, it's more for me when I think of the bigger scenes, I think of the songs that are going with them, and they're the ones that are traditional radio.
I see what you're saying.
More
I think we're agreeing, except in quantity. I think the recitative parts do a lot of the heavy lifting, and it leads us to the big numbers, call it. But even calling it a big number, nobody ever sort of gathers into the middle of the stage, all of the actors, to have a big finale. That doesn't happen.
There's not a spotlight kind of, psychological effect happening in that aspect. You're right. And one thing that I do want to mention is, that dialogue that you were saying about the two of them kind of having that thing when you see them going through different rooms. My mom is always when we're watching it, she's like, look, they match the wallpaper. They coordinate their clothes.
Oh God, the wallpaper is so much.
The clothes complement the room they are in. And look at how strong the choices are. I mean, even the doorway between the shop and into their house, that's that 3 or 4 foot deep kind of archway that you can tell is two buildings joined, but they cut a hole out. I mean, even that has got pattern, and it's beautiful, and I would love to do that. But I mean, just strong choices, and everything is complementary. I mean, it's just wild layering and intense color and pattern.
I mean, they
complement the walls. Yeah, but they're complementing the actual wallpaper with their clothes.
Oh yeah,
it's magical.
It's
eye candy.
It's a lot. Eye candy. Eye candy. Candy in the sense of you've eaten far too much of it, and suddenly your stomach's a bit sick, and my eyes hurt looking at it.
Yeah. but I get to the point where I dig on it because it's just, my ears are listening to the music and like my eyes are looking at the walls and their clothes and noticing the complementary colors and the patterns and how they work together. And then I'm also like emotionally into what's happening in the story. And, I think it's a very real story of, whether you live in a small town or a big town.
Oh, it totally works.
Love is always a universal, love is always a universal thing, but everyone can understand what it's like to have these adult conversations with your parents and, or whoever is like the adult that you have in your life, so a lot of the good mundane stuff is captured in a very fantastic visual and oral experience. So I don't know.
Yeah, note also on the way that they're speaking French. French is, of course, one of my native languages. It's just normal speech patterns, the way that they're doing the diction, the way they're choosing the words. At least somewhat dated, but this was actually made in the 60s, so, I can't expect it to be today.
Well, and my French isn't nuanced enough to even pick up like any kind of regional accents or anything like that.
They don't really have much. A couple of people have some accent in here, but none of the big people. They all sort of speak with a reasonably sort of neutral accent, by which I mean kind of Parisian.
Okay.
But yeah, this is what a lot of it makes it sound like to me. It's colloquial language sung in an operatic style, which is kind of neat. I don't hear that a lot. So anyway, why not sell some of your jewelry? No, those are for emergencies.
This kind of qualifies. Maybe you should think about it.
You're just going to lose the shop. Is that not a... All right.
Yeah.
She's particularly...
And the style of acting is a little bit... and it's not... And I would say the style of acting is a little bit... I don't want to say camp, but it is a little bit stylized. She legitimately does like her pearl clutching kind of vaguely silent film kind of stuff, and it's not that was the style of the films at the time, because like when my mom has had me watch like, A Man and a Woman and a few other like the French films at the time, which were more naturalistic. This one, though the dialogue feels natural, like their expressions and everything are just a little bit.
I feel like they wanted to evoke the opera in the way that they moved and the way that they blocked scenes. Because again, this sort of
I can believe that.
If I need to project this to someone at the back of the room, I need to clutch the pearls, right? It's not huge in that way, but it's the film equivalent of that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like it's definitely a little bit above the normal.
It's sort of hyper real in that way. And I think that's also the colors, because nobody in real life is going to color that much red of that hue. You know what I mean? They might make the walls red, but God, that's red.
I'm literally right now looking at my corner cabinet and it is painted that color red.
Okay,
my
so you're not people though. So
well, it's next to like a green couch, and I am a color junkie, which could be why I adore this film so much. But when I paint all my colors my walls that color, no.
Pale.
Having said that, when I moved into this house, the person did have all red walls for every room in the house. Every room in the house. It was a lot. So I guess
even
maybe that
had
person
to
does
tone
exist.
That down is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
right?
even though exactly. It was like it's too much. Yeah.
Cut to the jeweler shop where the dude in his fancy car from the first scene seems to be a gem trader.
I was going to say, is it the guy?
It is the guy.
Yeah. Later, as I was thinking, I was like, wait a minute.
Right now is when it happens.
No, I know, but what I was thinking was, wait a minute, I think that is the guy he's talking about from the first scene. I think the last time I caught it, and I was like, oh, there's what's his face. I don't remember his name at all.
We'll learn it in just a moment. For right now, he's just a guy who's selling jewels to the jeweler here, who seems impressed and wants to buy all of the jewels and whatnot. Turns out that the main guy, he can't buy the necklace because business. But the gem car mustache man seems interested in Geneviève, the necklace, and wants to buy her, it.
This is all, that's the caption. That's it. I like how you call him Mustache Man, though, because that's a very distinctive.
Look at his mustache and tell me that is not the reverse Hitler.
It is just, well, for me, it's imagining the time when you would see that on a man and be like, that man is the virile man that I need in my life. That is a sexy, mustachioed man. Not that he's unattractive, but the idea where like that mustache, of course, to me, it's all the cartoon villains now, right? Like if it was a little bit longer, he could be twirling it. But yeah, fashion is funny.
Now you just look at that mustache and go, is it November already?
Yeah, exactly.
Cut to tomorrow, where it turns out that he's a crook, and also Geneviève teens out to see her boyfriend, despite her mother's protestations. I mean, I guess he's not a crook.
What do you mean he's a... I was going to say, what do you mean he's a crook? I was like,
well,
I
that's
thought it
what
was a joke
she
I
thinks.
missed.
They both think that.
Oh.
And then it turns out he's not a crook after all. He was just running late.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. That's right. Sorry. I thought you meant like his intentions. I'm like, no, he has honorable intentions.
No, they call him a crook.
He's definitely picky. Yeah, I know. I forgot that part. But his intentions are pretty obvious.
Because they left the necklace with him.
Yeah.
And then just went like, cool, just get me the money whenever, man I've never met before.
Yeah. Maybe that is like the secret to her business failing.
Yeah, that and having nothing to upsell.
Yeah.
No add-on sales,
I mean,
nothing.
not even gum at the counter, man. Come on. They're France. Couldn't she sell cigarettes? She could sell cigarettes.
Anything.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah.
Coin purses, whatever.
Yeah.
Something with a branding
Anything
on it.
And for me, I just gotta wonder, like, if I've never seen an umbrella shop in real life, and to be fair, maybe umbrellas were really, really expensive back then, and they were considered luxury item. I don't know enough about the umbrella industry to make any statements about that at all. But, like, what would inspire him to be like, I know, we should create a shop as the setting that sells something I've never seen sold in a shop by itself.
People
like,
sell bags for thousands of pounds.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
It has the name thing on it. I don't know.
But people leave umbrellas in public more than they leave purses in public.
Oh, yeah, I agree, which is why probably... you know what I'm saying, though? Like, come on, sometimes luxury goods, the price is not based on the function of the thing.
No, and that's fair, but it's more the fact that we can all picture a handbag shop. But can any of us say, well, yeah, there is that umbrella shop down the road around the corner from Boots? No.
No, I agree.
So what made him decide in a small town they're going to have an umbrella shop and that's going to be the setting? Or maybe he just set it up to be like, okay, no matter what, it has to be a dumb business model set to fail for this story to work.
I feel like that's closer to the way I would do it.
Yeah.
But, you know, I also haven't written any good films. I've written a bunch of bad films that have never got made.
Well, I mean, that's how Edison got the light bulb, though, right? What was his line? I've learned 99 ways not to make a light bulb.
Yeah, he also didn't invent the light bulb, but okay.
Oh, no, you're right, because there was like the one guy who did like the filament inside. He
invented a stronger filament is what he did. He put stuff together. There were paper filaments before. There was a bunch of other filaments before. I think he used tungsten for the first time. Anyway, not a big deal. He was a fraud in a lot of ways and stole a lot of people's intellectual property and claimed it as his own. He was a marketing guy who is not very good as an engineer for the most part. Anyway.
Well, I mean, yeah. The Bill Gates of the light bulb world.
Fun translation note. In English, she describes the life we lead is so sad for a young girl, this dreary shop. In French, she doesn't say dreary, she says ce magasin sinistre, which is almost the same as the word sinister in English, but more strongly implies something which presages trouble or sadness.
Mm-hmm.
But also dreary kind of works here, kind of, because there's the double meaning that is in French but not in English, so the poor translator had to choose one. So,
well, for me, I always laugh because the word for left in Italian is sinistre.
Yeah,
and it goes back to like, yeah,
and
but it also
that devil worship or something. The devil goes through the left hand, so don't use that to do anything. In fact, everybody cut off your left arms, please.
Yep, I just
left
love
eyes,
like that. That word always makes me giggle. So yeah, it's a good word.
It's a very good, yeah. And in French, it sort of implies something bad coming up. So it's interesting that she chooses that word.
Well,
also,
you would have all the French notes that I certainly would not. But yes.
Yep. I speak this language for some reason.
Yeah, well, you're putting it to good use.
Right about here, they go into a room that is just so pink and orange, and oh my god, it hurts to look at. They sip tea, and he pays for the necklace and heads off, informing us that he will be back in a few months to see how Geneviève is coming along.
Yeah. Yep, that's how love works.
That's how love works. I'm just going to check in with you in a couple of months and see if you're in love with me yet.
Yeah, did it work? I laid the trap.
Cool. How much longer do I have to wait? Because I've got stuff to do in London. Okay, I'll be back soon, all right? Later. Cut to the garage, where Geneviève and Guy meet up once again and discuss the future! Turns out they've got, these phones that can do more than phones can do. Her mother is going to be a problem, but that's okay. They can elope together and live happily ever after. Happily ever after. Happily
That's how it works,
after.
too.
Especially in real life.
You just gotta push that button and make it happen.
I mean to say that he's actually been drafted into the Algerian War of Independence and is going to be away for 2 years.
Yeah.
I love their duet here about how upset they are about all of this.
That's, yeah. And I believe is this leading up to their night?
Oh yeah, this is the day before the night.
No, but I do like the scene when I think that's also the scene where when they're walking together, you can tell they're on a automated pedwalk because their legs aren't moving, but they're still going down the sidewalk.
Oh, they're on a dolly, for sure.
Yeah, they've got something that's just dragging them. But then I do love one thing that I think, and La La Land does this as well. They do kind of like Wes Anderson will set up a shot to balance the composition. There's no throwaway choice for a camera angle in a Wes Anderson film, right? There's always what's happening in the foreground and then the thing you're also watching in the background, which is amusing. And I love the scene where they're going down the alley and you're right. You see the squares and that shocking pink and there's the green. I don't know. I just think that's always an especially interesting composition of a shot there as it kind of leads up to it.
It's a weird shot, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. But it's beautiful.
It's sort of what wandering home drunk feels like. Isn't it? Come on now.
Yeah. And you get the wet, grimy looking streets. I mean,
oh yeah.
That's a night we've all had. So with less pink walls and green neon lights and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Also notable that the Cherbourg outside is almost always presented as wet and gray and grainy and unpleasant, except in a couple of scenes. But most of the time, it's well, I mean, it's northern France. What do you want?
Yeah, you'd think your umbrellas would be in high demand all the time because there's clearly a need for them nonstop.
Mm-hmm. Guess there's only one thing for it. They've got to make this evening memorable. And the only question is how should they spend their last night together for maybe 2 years? Scrabble? Mm-hmm. Rousing game of chess? Yep. Maybe they should do some knitting together.
Well, I just always am amused whenever that trope comes in a film where people spend one night together and the chances of getting pregnant on the first try are no, but that doesn't happen to anybody. That's just not how it works, right? Yeah. And so it's crazy because, I mean, I did have a friend in college who lost his virginity to a girl on campus and she got pregnant. He disappeared for a semester and was like, what? And then when he came back, he took fatherhood and they had she was 10 years older than him and they took they wound up having 4 kids and being together. But it was wow, the night you lost your virginity was the night you got a girl pregnant. That's the statistical chances of that happening are nuts.
Don't gamble, sir. Don't gamble. Or depending on how you feel about that kid, do gamble. Yeah, exactly. Depending on how that all turned out. But I mean, I really don't like the trope when you see it coming, when they're about to part, something's about to happen, and that they're about to go inside, take care of some shaking hands, and that statistically they're not going to be pregnant, but that sure has a high statistic in movies. Kind of I hate when you watch any kind of crime show and the criminal is almost always left-handed. It is exhaustingly irritating because it knocks out 90% of the population. I mean, you would think that left-handed people were deviant criminals for as much as they're the criminals on TV shows. It's just lazy writing. So you might even say they're somehow sinister.
Wow. Nicely done, sir.
You're welcome.
Nicely done. That was beautiful.
I'm both proud and ashamed
apologize.
Of that.
No. I'm well done. So
yeah, my note for this section is she going to be a teen pregnant? Because I feel like she's going to be a teen pregnant.
Cautionary tale in place.
Also, Guy's room is another of these colors, blue this time, and I'm starting to wonder if this is a choice the directors made or whether this is just what rooms looked like in the 50s.
I mean, the fact that my mom pointed out the color in that film, now granted she was in America, but, I mean, wallpaper was never cheap. I think this film is full on color bonanza. But again, he has always got blues and browns. When you watch him, those are his colors.
And a really sort of saturated yellowy brown, too. like an orangey yellowy brown, like a warm brown, not like one of those gross poo browns.
Yeah, and when you watch La La Land, he's the
Same
only
colors.
character that seems to stick to the color line of who he represents in the story. And La La Land is not a remake of this. It is heavily inspired by.
Okay,
So
it's sort of its own thing, and also
yes,
highly inspired
yes.
by Thing.
It's lots of nods. Imagine like it's like a rap song. There's like samples from the film in there.
Got it.
Yeah.
Later at Genevieve's place, she tells her mother that Guy has been conscripted, which makes her very happy. Her meaning her mother. She's actually devastated.
Yeah. Yeah, well, look at these moms knowing what their kids don't know and
2 years,
choosing
perfect.
to, yep, good, I can figure something else out. Someone with more prospects.
Or at least at that
I wonder
point
who
you'll
she
be
has
19.
in mind. Yeah, I wonder who she has in mind. So, yeah, but the idea of buying some time. But the mom could do better about trying to look disappointed with her daughter, though. Little bit unsupportive.
She's not being looked at by her daughter. She's being looked at by us, the camera people. And she's like, oh, that's a relief, while her daughter's like crying in her lap.
Yeah. Yeah, but she's kind of flippant where she's like, it's going to be fine, don't worry. But which I guess is what moms are supposed to say, right?
Not just mom thing. That is so exactly how I would expect any of my aunts to respond to anything I've ever said. It's maybe very Gallic, and like being from Quebec, there's a great deal of French stuff, and I've seen people do that exact face when they're just talking to a child and going, okay, no, don't run with the scissors. I'm going to take those from you now.
But yeah, I mean, it certainly moves the plot along. I mean, the plot is very well and very clearly established. There's no nuance in the plot, right? They're going to meet. There's going to be a war. The mom doesn't like it. There's somebody else. There's very obviously another man and another woman involved in the storyline, tangentially, but not in a throwaway role. So, it's kind of going where you think it's going to go at this point.
Yep, we get a short scene where Guy in a suit is off to war and saying goodbye to his Aunt Elise and to her nurse Madeleine. As he says goodbye to Madeleine, she continues to smolder loudly at him.
Right at him.
Like, just directly. Like, if she had taken off her clothes right now, I would have been like, no, yeah, that's right. That's exactly what she wants.
That's where this is going now. So, yeah.
Straight to checkers.
Mm-hmm. And then his aunt, I mean, you get the Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, infirmed person laying in bed all day long with like the younger person being sent off, kind of.
Except that in this case, she's actually bedridden and not just like until it turns out that there's money somewhere.
That she needs to start dancing at a candy factory until that moment is called upon, right?
That's the one. Yeah.
I mean, but if he had walked in with a golden ticket, it could have been a whole different movie. I mean, the music's already there.
God,
No?
I would
Is that
love
just
to
me?
see
Okay.
both of these films made by each other's directors. That would be hilarious. Cut to
Again, Tim Burton, I'm telling you. It's got that hyper stuff happening.
At least get him producing. Cut to downstairs, where Genevieve is ready to walk with him to the train station, where they tearfully say goodbye, and I think the most stylish shot of the film. The folks making this really understood composition. But also, is it cliche by 1964, or is this the thing that creates the cliche?
I was going to ask that question because it is the train goodbye thing. In my head, I think I can picture some kind of black and white Bogart when trains were more prevalent in films. But in my head, it is certainly, I've often wondered that. I keep meaning to look it up. Is this the thing that makes the goodbye train station?
Trains are a nice thing to film because you know exactly where they're going to go and how quickly, so you can set up a camera and get all your frame rates and everything right. And also, like, some of the first films were trains. So I would be shocked if this were the first, but also it would be really interesting if it is. Yeah.
So like for me, my mom had me watch this film when I was a teenager, and I spent a summer in Florence studying Italian. And Carlo, you remember him from where you went to school and I worked, came down. He was my boyfriend at the time, and he came down to visit in Florence, but he came by train. And so, like, I had this moment where he only stayed for 3 days, and I got to walk him to the train station in Florence. And then, like, he gets on the train, and in my head, I'm like, where's my blue scarf? Like, this is my waving goodbye to somebody on a train moment. I am having my cinematic moment here. I can't think of anybody else I know who's had this moment. So like the film stuck with me as I'm like, in Italy, in a beautiful town with beautiful architecture, and, my swarthy boyfriend is getting on the train and he's leaving, I didn't sing in French to him, but that's probably made things better that I didn't attempt to do that. But yeah, it's the one that's in all the previews for the film. The song.
I was waiting for you to say, and then I got to the gates and they asked me for my ticket and I couldn't get in.
No, I did the whole cheesy, like if you ever,
in Italy they totally let you through, naturally.
Yeah, but have you seen the film Airplane? Surely you have.
I have seen Airplane, and don't call me Shirley.
Oh man, you got some serious. I'm gonna get out my scorecard. I can't keep track of the points. You're nailing this.
That's 2. That's how many scores so far? 2.
But now I feel like it's coming, so like I'm ready for it now. I'm just gonna keep track. But there is the whole scene where like Elaine is saying goodbye to him. Yeah, there's that whole scene where like Elaine is saying goodbye to him, either in part 1 or part 2, and she's like smacking into the lampposts as she's like running alongside and saying goodbye to him. I don't know if it's him or some other love story, but making fun of the cliche, which is obviously at least, 15 years afterwards. So luckily, I was half being umbrellas of Cherbourg, wishing I had my blue handkerchief, and half looking out for poles as I ran alongside the train for a little bit to say my goodbye. And he hung out the window and waved back. Yeah, well, 3's my lucky number. So that's, that was my sign to quit. But yeah, he hung out of the window back at me. He was the only person. It's pretty fabulous.
That's quite the thing. It's quite the experience.
I highly recommend it. Everyone should have their moment. Go make it happen.
Part 2, l'absence. Absence, effectively. But first, could we just talk a little bit about this war he's going to? Because this was the Algerian War of Independence, which lasted until 1962. And this film was made in 1964. I like that the filmmakers used the overarching political events to drive the plot. And I don't see a lot of war movies doing this, or movies just being like, we're going to acknowledge what was happening and use it as a driving force in the characters' lives, because of course it would be. Though now I'm living through my 4th or 5th giant historical event of my life before the age of 40.
It's exhausting.
Here's the thing. If I were writing a love story set in current year, I would feel weird ignoring SARS-CoV-2. I would feel weird. Yeah. It would have to be there if it's any time in 2020, 2021, right? I'm now guessing that this is maybe less, this is the story I want to tell, and more, well, we have to address this because it would be weird otherwise.
Well, by the time you've written the script, made the film, got it into production, distributed it, the idea of the jump from 62 to 64 is not that big of a stretch.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. The war was just about over. Also, 1958 is when France's Fourth Republic ended and Fifth Republic started in what was effectively a coup. So there was some stuff happening.
Yeah. Yeah. People stay busy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So don't need to get too far into that or too political, just to say there was some stuff happening. So we join our heroes in January 1958 at the umbrella shop. Geneviève looks pale and has just been to the doctor. Guess she just needs to rest for... Oh, she's totally pregnant. She's unbelievably pregnant. How is anybody not seeing this? I have seen 2 pregnant people at this stage of pregnant, and I can tell.
And they're like, okay, let's get rid of him. And now the next scene is immediately her pregnancy problem.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So guess who Mum saw at the shop earlier, but Roland Cassard, the mustache guy.
Oh, yep. When you said his name, I remembered it.
Mm-hmm. It can't be serious. He went to the doctor and he just said he gave me some stuff. Don't worry about it. Okay, I won't worry about it. So guess who Mum saw in town? She saw him, and it was super exciting for Mum mostly. I was now convinced that she was going to end up with Roland Cassard. I thought that's the way it was going.
She for sure, was. She's into him. She has a cougar vibe happening for sure.
I want it, so therefore my daughter wants it. What part of this is complicated for you?
That's how it works.
in real life, as in everywhere else. Being told that Guy hasn't written her recently, and her mum is convinced that, like, he's probably forgotten about you or died or something. Don't worry about it. I'm sure it's fine. Anyways, have you seen this rich guy? Look at this rich guy.
Yep. Just a perfect transition. But, it'll be fine. But yeah, exactly. Have you noticed his dashing mustache?
How could I not?
Yeah. So.
How many kilos of grease do you think he puts in his hair every day?
Too many.
Too many kilos.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the mathematical measurement.
So she says at one point, obéis-moi, which is translated in the version I saw as obey me, but that's a lot harsher in English than it is in French.
Yeah. I would have said listen to me is what I would have picked up on it.
I would have said something as do as I say, or mother knows best, something like that, because that's what she's meaning. Like, obéis-moi is like, I'm your mom, I'm telling you I'm your mom, and go do the thing, please. Right? A lot of stuff is contextual and implied in French, and it's got to be tough for translators to be like, okay, I understand the feeling. How do I make Anglophones understand this?
Yeah, I mean, but that's why you have industries based on which translation you're going to do of any text and how they're all different, Yeah, but the translations and things like that for sure make it interesting. And my French is restaurant directional passable French. But you're always when you're reading a translation, you can tell more is being said than is being put in the caption. And so it's always kind of interesting to try and figure out the missing pieces that you're not being offered when it's not your language.
I don't know about more. I think sometimes the word choice can either limit or change the way that something's being presented to a different language audience. And
I think go ahead.
No, yeah, I was going to say when you're bilingual, you can sort of see what's missing, but also say, I don't know how else to say that in English, though, so I guess that's pretty close. Unless you were going to sit there and spend 3 sentences explaining it, and then you can't do that in a dramatic work. You have to choose.
Well, and that's the point that happens to me, because I do speak pretty decent Spanish, and I had this conversation with, 70% of my students are Hispanic, and we have the conversations of, when you watch something and they're putting subtitles and they're like, yeah, they never put it all in there. And it's like, well, yeah, they're trying, if they.
That would be a cool assignment, actually. Do an actual translation.
Yeah. Reading is slower than listening, and, they can't wait for them to catch up. Yeah, you have time choices. So I'm always a little bit wondering exactly what beautiful nuanced things I'm missing as they're making compromises and choices for efficiency to honor the craft and the subtitle. Anyway,
I can tell you in this film, it was pretty good. It was pretty
good.
There's
that makes me feel better.
A few places where I was like, I'm not sure I agree with that one, but mostly it was, I should clarify in case that got lost, because to me it's obvious when I hear it, and then I'm like, how would I say that in English? So here, his name, this is Roland Cassard. This is a cool language thing, actually. This is also it's a real name, Cassard. There are people named Cassard. I looked it up. There's like military people of note named Cassard. It's a real surname. But it's also a word that's derived from casser, which means to break or broken. And Cassard would be a person who breaks, if we were going to verb it that way.
Oh, wow.
Right?
That's kind of cool.
Like, given that they could have called him anything, like they could have called him Roland Dubois or like whatever else they instead. This feels like a choice to me, but I don't know how much of a choice it is.
Well, I would even get into like, I would want to look up, because this is me making a gump. But even still, I'm making a guess for Geneviève. Isn't that related to like some of the roots of that related to the word like young or spring or something like that? Or am I just kind of making too big of a jump?
Geneviève, technically it's sort of homophonic with jeune, but I don't know how related the word Geneviève is to jeune, actually, because it's spelled differently. The J and the G are quite different. I don't know, actually, that one. That's total guess. Because I've known a lot of people named Geneviève, I'm like, actually, that doesn't sound like... But that's also where it limits me somewhat, because that's just the name of people to me.
Yeah, and I have 2 friends in that for sure, but I don't know. When someone does that for a character, there might... And it's a subtle one, right? It's not like an over-the-top Dickensian character name. So there might be other things like that. I mean, the guy's name is Guy, for crying out loud. It's just like some guy. But I love him.
I
He's
guess,
great.
I mean, to me,
He's kind of, but
pretty distinct.
no, and I love it. It's one of my favorite names, though, like one of my favorite French names. And I do like him as a character. I mean, he's kind of stressy,
right
but
now.
he should be. Yeah, exactly. That's fair. Okay, sorry. Let's get back on track. Sorry.
But yeah, I had a note about how much I like the mom clutching her pearls whenever she's sort of worried, because she's used to having pearls like her whole life, and now she doesn't have them. So when she's nervous, she's like, I'm going to reach for it's like when I'm not wearing my glasses after a shower or something, and I sort of go to adjust my glasses absentmindedly, and I'm like, where did I? Right.
Yep.
I remember what I was just doing 3 minutes ago. I like that the actors took on elements like this of the characters. I like that a lot. Cut to later at supper, where they're enjoying a dessert of galette des rois with their guest Roland Cassard, who has been invited despite her pregnancy, which she's now told her mum about. I am so impressed with the intricacy here. This whole scene, I hope it's not lost in English, but it might be a little lost in English. Vous ne pouvez donc pas vivre sans l'autre. It means, so therefore you couldn't live one without the other. Neither of you can live without the other, is that right? And they sort of go, well, we've never really been apart, and ce ne serait pas moi qui aurais la faute. It wouldn't be my fault if we did have to separate. And then she pulls la fève, the bean, out of the galette,
the cake,
and she says, "C'est moi qui l'ai," both meaning it would be my fault, and also I have the bean. And how much do you know about galette des rois and the bean?
Okay, well, let me tell you right now, you're talking to a Louisiana girl, and we eat king cake, and I just bought, and you would have been there for my Mardi Gras stuff. I would have had a Mardi Gras party every year, and you would have had some of that king cake.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because, so that would have been in our spring production. I would go home to Louisiana at Christmas, get a king cake, keep it in my freezer until Mardi Gras, and then I always had it with the theater kids at night when Mardi Gras happened. And it was almost always for some reason. Yeah, anyway, so I just bought them, and they have the... Yep. And so, but that's where me growing up in Louisiana around French culture, the anglicized version of it is hinted there. Yeah. I mean, I probably got the bean, in the cake kind of thing for sure. So yeah, I mean, and I don't know what it translates to over there, but basically if you get the baby and the king cake and the Mardi Gras cake, you have to buy the cake the next year.
Oh, not quite the same then. It's sort of like a dinner game. For the listeners who are not sure what we're talking about, the galette or the king cake is, it's a cake. It's a dessert. And inside of it, sort of like a British Christmas pudding, instead of a coin, though, they put a bean, a fève, right? Traditionally, there's also, you can put little, like, king-shaped things in there. The idea is, like, a kid normally will sit under the table and name whoever gets the next piece, and the person slicing the cake will sort of hand them out, and whoever gets the bean gets to choose the king for the day. In this case, she chooses her king, which is said very specifically, not choose le roi, but ton roi. And she sort of looks across the table and says, well, I guess I don't really have a choice, it's you. Meaning both, he's the only man here, therefore king, though currently it's king or queen, so we've sort of... that got equalized pretty quick. But in the 60s, it was definitely still, but she can't be the king. Kings are men. So she has to choose her king, and here's the only man available.
And I feel like this is one of those shots where you see her saying it, and they've done like an extra filter treatment on her face to like kind of, Oh,
and she stares directly into the lens.
Exactly. I mean, they kind of like, I know the word angelify is not a word, but that is like a certain... like, let's highlight her extraordinary beauty and give her these, like, big doe eyes as she's looking right at him, Like, she's not unaware of the nuances of what's happening as far as, like, she isn't so very much against it that she doesn't recognize that this needs to happen. This is what she's going to do because she's trying to walk the two lines. And it's a really interesting character development because she's obviously very distraught over Guy and what's happened and she hasn't heard from him. But she's also very much like, well, I've got to be thinking about this and I better take advantage of this to at least keep my foot, like, myself in the game while I figure out what I want to do. So, I mean, I don't, it's ugly to call her manipulative, but I mean,
she's not manipulative. No, I don't think she's manipulative at all. I think she's like, well, what are my options here exactly?
Exactly. But that's what I mean, where it's like, you don't even know that she sincerely likes him for him.
Mm.
And that's what I'm talking about, the idea of her being manipulative, right? Like,
saying,
it's like, you are the choice I have. You are the one that is here based on what you just said,
Mm-hmm.
And he seems nice enough. And he's not a bad choice. He's just not her first choice.
So this is the first place where I disagree with the translation, because Roland here, trying to be romantic, says that Geneviève reminds him of what is it he says here, like an actual virgin birth child like he saw a week ago in Antwerp. That's how it comes across in English, whereas what he says in French is une vierge à l'enfant, which is just like the name of this artistic figure of the Virgin Mary with the baby Jesus in her arms, right? Usually suckling at her breast. So he's sort of trying to be like, you look so beautiful, like this beautiful crafted statue that I saw. It's almost like you're an artwork. This is what he's trying to say. The English translation does make it sound like, I saw this lady just in the streets in Antwerp and she was suckling a child and you remind me of her. It was so weird.
I think that because I'm an art person and I know that they've got, the Madonna always implies, I mean, Mary is always called Mary, but the Madonna is her with that baby suckling. Like, that's kind of like the term
that's what
that they
we're
use.
talking about.
So
in French, it's La Vierge à l'enfant.
So yeah, that's what I figured you were connecting it to. So I guess because I was aware of that phenomenon, I missed how obvious that would sound awkwardly because I made the jump.
The English sounded a bit awkward to me, yeah. But for anybody listening, that is what happens. It's like an actual, this is the Madonna that he saw, and he's like, you look just like her. It's really nice. That was pretty, and so are you. And of course, she's there like, virgin, gotcha.
Yeah, but even still,
I need more wine.
But even still, that would connect to the idea of, that would make him the Joseph figure, right? Like, she's got a baby by somebody else that she's going to have to raise.
Oh, no, they're doing a Jesus. I was hoping they wouldn't do a Jesus this whole time, and I didn't spot them doing the Jesus.
But let's discuss back to that cake, right? Because in the Mardi Gras terms,
of course.
The king cake in Louisiana, you put plastic figures of baby Jesus in there. So that's the king that's the king that you're pulling out, is the Jesus king. So to me, that all connects. To me, that's a religious cake because of my one filter that I've got for it.
Oh yeah.
And so
Galette des Rois is, that is sort of the connotation when you say it in French, because it's, well, yes and no. Galette des Rois just means like king's cake, as in like it belongs to the king, but you could put a little Jesus in there and be like, look, this is a king too. And it's like wordplay. It's a dad joke in a cake.
Yeah. But and we eat those, and I don't remember the time of the year in this one, but we eat those like during Lent, So it's like,
eat them whenever.
It's leading up to like, the Easter and the birth and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, anyway,
I think at this point in the film
it's
like February, but like you can eat these whenever.
Well, but that's about the time of year. That's what the Mardi Gras tends to be. I mean, Easter is one of those two holidays. Easter's a lunar holiday, so it shifts every year. I'm sure you know that.
Yep.
So, I mean, it could be any time from February to March.
So Geneviève retires from the table, and Mum and Roland chat for a bit longer. Naturally, they discuss having Roland marry her, the Geneviève, I mean. But first, the audience, I need Mum, needs to know his backstory. Wayne's World noises and flashback.
Yep.
See, he used to be in love with a woman named LaLa who didn't love him back, and he wanted to forget her, so he left France for a while and went all around the world and got so depressed until he saw Geneviève in the shop earlier in the movie, and that's his backstory.
And sadly, somehow that made me think I should name my daughter Lola, even though Lola is like, that's not a happy story. But what's funny for me is the name Lola, so that's my daughter's name, from this scene. I was watching this movie and I had the inspiration. But the name Lola is derived from the Spanish name Dolores, which has to do with dolor, so the idea of pain, and it's connected to an image of Mary. It's Maria de Dolor or something like that. But basically, it's when she's like comforting people who are like sad and miserable. So Lola is a nickname for a name that derives from the idea of pain. So I tell Lola that it has to do with her being able to comfort people in pain, because it's kind of a depressing name. I mean, dolor is the word is pain.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of this like painful story
English,
he's
now
telling.
I'm thinking about it. Something is dolorous.
Yeah, but that's gonna be the French that links into the English language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost like the English language goes like, you made that, I made this.
Yeah, exactly. Look at what I did.
Look how original the English language is. What's French? Well, I don't understand.
Yeah, that's why whenever all of my Spanish students are like, they worry about their reading, I'm like, first off, Spanish and French are super close. So basically all the longest, hardest words in the English language, you already have a cheat sheet for, and they spend the whole year going, oh, because I'll tell them what that word is in French and in Spanish. And then I'm like, so I don't want to hear you guys complaining about how hard this stuff is, because you have a bigger vocabulary than my native English speakers, because you access the hard French words faster than they do.
Oh, yeah,
Sorry,
for real.
Another weird side note. So, yeah. So, anyway, yeah, his story is, and think about this, like, she saves him, right? Which, I mean, you can just do a whole bunch of religious imagery stuff happening here.
I didn't get anything religious imagery, but you're right, now that I'm hearing it, and I'm so upset, because I was like, oh, good. I'm not going to get browbeaten with religious imagery, and now, of course, I'm like, oh, right, 1960s France.
I was getting ready to say, it's not like the French are super Catholic or anything.
Almost like that. Yes and no. Yes and no. It's complicated.
Well, no. The idea of like the history of them versus like modern day attendance. Yeah, that's all a whole different demographic.
France has also been a lay state since the revolution. So like there's also that.
Well, they're pretty good at breaking up religion too. I mean, they have like the great schism in the different popes and kidnapping the popes and stuff like that.
If you want to go that far back, then that's a whole different podcast. Potentially like series of podcasts. Like we'll have to have multiple podcasts if we want to do that.
It's some good stories is all I'm saying. But yeah.
So Mum, having earlier told her daughter that no one falls in love with a face right away like that, seems to nonetheless consider this, because possibly he's a rich guy who can ensure her daughter's future, and most likely also a future for her. Maybe even a pearl necklace, who knows, maybe. And, I'm not sure which of those plays more of a role in her thinking, but both clearly do.
Well, and sped up with the timeline of how fast it can happen with the baby and the baby having a father, right?
That's true. So he certainly seems sincere, and anyways, he's off to Amsterdam for a while and reckons Geneviève is free, totally free, to make whatever decision she wants, right? Right? Free to, she can just make any decision. Oh boy, multiple perspectives make this scene very good. Every time someone says something, I've got all three perspectives going through my head, and also Guy's perspective, I guess. All four perspectives going through my head. And it is so good. This scene is one of my favorites. It's
a big chess piece kind of setup, right?
It is so good.
They're all angling their own stuff for sure.
They all
and I don't think any of them. None of them are.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, none of them are malicious, though. I mean, it's just kind of a reflection of how complex the situation can be, and it's all logical.
They're motivated by their own wants, needs, and desires. And wants and desires. Wow, redundancy department of redundancy. But you see what I'm saying? Like they're clearly self-motivated, and that's fine and never presented as bad, because again, it's a bit of a trope to be like, but if you love someone, then you have to be willing to give up everything. No,
well, I mean, the French are really good about capturing, love and its complex brutality, on film. The French and the love stories are,
I was going to say,
iconic for a reason.
So French.
Yeah.
Love, whatever, fuck it,
Yes, let's make this work anyway.
Cut to winter, a month later, and they've received some letters, including one from Guy. You remember Guy, the guy who went off to war leaving a pregnant 17-year-old behind? Yeah, this letter says, I'm sure you're waiting for me. Thanks for that. Also, this sentence at the end of his letter is such a war. C'est étrange que le soleil et la mort voyagent ensemble. It's strange that the sun and death travel together. Oh, that's a war letter.
Yeah, the grittiness of life.
He's in Algeria.
Combined with
That's real.
Oh, Yeah.
I don't want to get too much into what the French were doing in Algeria, but I'm starting to be like, is he cutting off people's things? Because the French were brutal in Algeria.
Yeah. There's a lot of apologies to be passed out for sure, which isn't nearly enough.
I don't know enough about it, but I've read one book, and it was not a fun book to read. So Geneviève has some decisions to make. As a letter she writes to Monsieur Cassard, thanking him for his postcard and looking at a photo of Guy in his military uniform.
Oh, before I forget, LaLa Land also does the timestamp, season.
Are we?
As a title screen. You'll see that as well, also mimicked in LaLa Land.
So what you're saying is I don't need to add LaLa Land to the list anymore because,
No, I'm just saying you're going to recognize it. No, you're just going to recommend it. It's going to be good.
I'm
it's
looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
Cut to a festival happening in the streets while Geneviève works through the crowds to get to work. It's March. It's March, so I assume that this is Mardi Gras. It could be Mardi Gras.
Yeah, do they call it that?
Mardi Gras, yeah. Mardi Gras just means Fat Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's the Tuesday where everyone gets fat.
Well, it's the Tuesday where they all used to clean out their larders because all the stuff you used to make sweet food is going to go bad.
Yep.
In the 6 weeks it takes for you to get around to it.
So you may as well eat all the sugar.
Yep, just binge it all, which then translates to, alcohol poisoning in New Orleans, clearly.
Yep. So,
be really bad so you can be really good and get it out of your system.
That's right. That's how God works. I need you to give up stuff for the next 40 days. Okay, God. So for today, what you're saying is that I can just go crazy, right? I didn't actually. Cool. Heard you loud and clear, buddy.
Yep, that's what I got. Yep. And Catholic, so I'm forgiven. Yeah, I'm forgiven, so it's fine.
Yeah, shotguns and entire. She's starting to look pregnant, according to her mother. I guess a bit.
The first pregnancy you barely show.
Is it? I know very little about pregnancy.
And the second and third, your muscle memory pops out immediately. I did not even know I was pregnant with Lily, my first one. I just thought after 3 months that my pants were a little bit tighter than usual after 3 months.
Oh, wow. Really?
So I totally missed a full trimester. But with Julian, I know I was pregnant, and at 2 weeks pregnant, I was already looking more pregnant than after the first 3 months with Lily. Your muscle memory is like, oh, I know what this is. Here you go.
I remember how this goes. Got it.
Super fast. So yeah, the first one, everyone tends to be pretty tiny.
Okay. I didn't know that.
So.
Well, I'm going to get rid of my next note.
So her being a teenager and thin. Yep. Oh, okay.
My next note was just, she doesn't look pregnant. But I guess I don't understand what pregnant people look like, having not been one myself. Yeah.
Probably a connection.
Someday.
Yeah. Do you get pregnant someday?
Probably not. You're right.
That'd be a heck of a film, though. That'd be a script worth writing.
This is where also she clearly doesn't feel very beautiful, and she's sort of looking in the mirror going, oh, no. I assume that's real.
Deneuve on her worst... Yeah, Catherine Deneuve on her worst day is still better than, 90% women on their best day. She's ridiculously pretty. Have I mentioned that?
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned that you definitely have a lady crush on this lady.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I guess Mum has made peace with the fact that she's about to be a grandmother, what with the tiny knitting thing, the little tiny... She's expecting a girl, you see, so she's made a pink sweater. Well,
that's because it matches the walls better, Paul.
That's the main thing. Do you have any idea how much this wallpaper costs?
You better have a girl because our house is not decorated for a grandson.
Unless he likes pink, in which case, fine.
Actually, pink used to be the boys' color and blue used to be the girls' color.
A more decided color, I believe, is what I read one time, yeah.
Yeah, because it was considered a more vibrant, alive color and energetic, where the blue was more subdued and docile, which is where the girls were supposed to be as far as behaviors.
It's weird how that changes. Then, lighting a cigarette while pregnant, Geneviève continues to consider her options. Did they know? 58? Did they know?
Not then, and I'm sure being French, they were drinking the wine as well. It's amazing any of us honestly ever got this far.
Because her mother seems to have misgivings about it, but I don't know how to read this.
I don't think they knew.
Okay.
People were still smoking in the 70s when they were pregnant.
Ugh. Ugh.
Yeah.
So as they talk it over, Genevieve grabs a snack because, I mean, even I understand the pregnant lady, she needs her snackies.
Mm-hmm.
Do not get between the pregnant lady and whatever munchies she is eyeing.
It's the one time in her life when she can eat whatever she wants and no one can say a word to her. So yeah, they lean into it for sure.
Mm-hmm. She reflects that Roland Cassard might not actually be an option anyway, because, well, who's going to want a pregnant lady? A point of language here, engrossé, is translated as knocked up, which is... How ugly is knocked up as a way to describe?
It's not, yeah.
Is it like super ugly?
It's a brutal slang. Yeah, it's a brutal slang.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then engrossé is approximately that then, because it means that someone made you fat. Like they fattened you like a pig.
Oh.
Like gros is big, but it's also
I was
fat.
going to say, well, kind of like foie gras, like they just kind of fattened you up like a goose or something.
Foie gras is fat. So
that's duck, isn't it? That's duck. Never mind.
Well, yeah, duck. But also foie is.
But they
the
like
liver.
Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah,
but they like force feed them so the liver is fat.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So it turns the liver into pâté. So then when you take out the liver, you don't have to turn it into pâté. It's like the animal digesting whatever it was. It's a gross way to make food, and I've had foie gras, and it's not good enough to justify that, frankly.
Yeah, it's creamy, but not enough to. It's creamy and nice, but I mean,
I want to do that to a duck to get it, though.
I was getting ready to say, I'm like, but it's not like, yeah, I'm with you. I've had it, I get it, but eh.
But yeah, engrossé in French is quite ugly as a way to describe this.
Okay.
So
this is so much fun for me to hear like the French nuance of the words that you're able to translate, because it's a whole new level that I don't have access to.
Yeah, like someone
like
has
super geeking out over it.
Like someone, if you were to describe yourself as engrossé, it's like someone has fattened me and I feel gross.
Oh, wow.
So new plan. If he somehow accepts, this is Roland, of course, if he somehow accepts that she's pregnant and he's still cool with it for some reason, then clearly he's actually in love with her, and she may as well marry him because, you know, even if she's not super in love with him, that's fine, probably. Right? High five.
Good enough.
Anybody?
How
High
French.
five.
There we go. Let's make it work. Yep. Make it work.
Cut to April, where Genevieve's dress matches her wallpaper exactly.
I was going to say that wedding thing, they put her in the white room with the house with the blue accents.
Oh, the wedding happens before this?
No, I'm laughing because like the wedding dress, like she is in the room. That's what I'm saying. Like you don't really see that room very much, but now they're obviously saving it for the scene. So that way her dress has the proper background with like, you know.
It's the same print between the wallpaper and the dress.
Yep.
Yeah, so it turns out that Roland Cassard loves Geneviève enough that he's willing to marry her despite the whole pregnant with another man's child thing, which is very progressive of him in the 50s, I have to say. Fun detail, they have this conversation at the same dockyard where Guy and Geneviève earlier had their date at the start of the film, but that was at the nighttime, and this is at the daytime.
Yep, I think I'd forgotten that.
And also, they're not exactly dancing happily together, as she and Guy did in the first one. Yeah,
there's some adult level understanding at this point.
Turns out Geneviève has decided to marry Roland Cassard and isn't super happy about it, or doesn't at least look very happy about it as they're putting their rings on each other at their wedding. Detail, no one's in the church except for her mother and one random lady on Roland's side.
Yeah, it's like a resigned kind of, let's do this and get the formality out of the way.
And Roland puts the ring on her finger, and then she doesn't put the ring on his finger, he puts it on himself.
I don't know what the traditions are for them at the time.
You put the ring on each other.
Is that... Well, I mean, I'm saying, is that a universal cultural thing, or is it different?
I don't know about universal in France, yeah, totally.
Okay.
You would put the ring on each other. French culture, yeah.
That's what I thought. I just didn't know if that carried over as like, you know, what Americans and English do versus French.
Well, I mean, I guess I know that really well from Quebec. I'm assuming that we're doing the same thing as they do in France. If there's any French people listening, tell me I'm wrong if I'm wrong, because I would like to know about it. Otherwise, I'm going to assume I'm right forever about everything.
That's fair. Until I hear otherwise.
Until I hear otherwise, I am correct in all of my opinions.
That's how
including
this
the wrong ones.
come at me, bro.
So on her
But
wedding
it's spelled
day,
Breaux, so it's a French come at me, bro.
Mm-hmm. What's the French come at me, bro? Sorry, I cut you off.
I said Breaux.
Bro.
It was my really funny, like, that's my Louisiana joke. They spell everything that's got
Braux, yeah.
Everything in Louisiana that's got an O sound at the end, they will Cajunify it up, or I guess Creole it up.
Bro.
And make it Eaux. I mean, my brother went to a school, and it's in Louisiana, and they say "Go Tigers," but all of the bumper stickers say GEAUX Tigers.
Go
Like
Tigers. Oh God, it makes my teeth itch.
That's what I'm telling you.
Ugh.
That's the Louisiana gimmick. Any word that has an O at the end, they will change the spelling to the French spelling.
Hey, you know what? You can have it. You can have that. It's all yours.
Well, it certainly made it easy for me when I traveled to France, because I was able to, like, I grew up with, teachers named Thibodeau and, all these different, I got a lot of the vowels without thinking about it, because it was the names of towns I grew up around.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway. On her wedding day, she's not exactly super happy as she drives off with her new husband, but who knows what's going on with Guy, because he's sort of got that one facial expression.
Yep.
So, again, 1958 was something of a turning point in French history, and what with the end of the Republic and all that, and the military coup and everything that was going on. So, that would happen officially in September that year, 58, and stuff was already a bit uneasy, so I could totally see someone in Genevieve's position having to prioritize stability over emotional needs. So I kind of dig that she wasn't like, no, I will go with my heart because Disney movie.
I was going to say that's the American film, though. And that is one of the things that I used to talk about in class. I mean, I made a point to, having been to 30 countries, and I made a point to talk to my students. And I'm like, you've got to leave your American crap at the door, because your filter for what you think you're reading is not going to help you with these things. You have to look at this. And so I did talk about, Americans like happy endings. And the few times they
cannot deal with non-happy endings.
And I'm like, and that's what I love about independent film or foreign film, is they're not lassoed to that. I mean, you watch a French film and there's a 50-50 chance it's going to have a happy ending. America, it's a 95 to 5% chance. And if it's going to not have a happy ending, the title tells you that from the beginning. So you're like braced for it.
To be clear,
but the
happy ending in the French story is like happy tempered with, what are you going to do?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So that's what I like. I feel like stories outside of America are more realistic, because there's no guarantee for this happy ending, which is very much more helping you cope with life and the reality of it. Do you know what I mean? I mean, things might not always work out.
Also, Madeleine is outside the church and sees Geneviève get married. You remember Madeleine, right? Mm-hmm. The smolder lady? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. She's got one emotion, smolder.
Yep. And she's also the news gatherer to make sure Guy knows what happens whenever he comes back. So well placed.
And that's the end of part 1 of Umbrellas au Cherbourg. Join us next time when we'll find out what's been happening with Guy. Will he ever see his kid? Will true love prevail? Will someone find a way to speak without singing? Join us on part 2 to find out.
Oh, La La Land is wonderful.
You see her smoldering?